close. We're good. So I am going to call the meeting to order, and this is the City Council work session for Minnetrista, January 18th, 2022. I'll start out by making introductions. With us this evening, we have our City Clerk, Don Motzko. Council members present are Kathleen Refkin, Ann McGregor, John Chumperland, Pam Mortensen. I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm the mayor. And next to me is our Finance Director, Brian Grimm. He's sitting in as our go-to person for the meeting. And then we have our Allie, what is your
Director of Administration?
Allie Palfos, and then also attorney with Kennedy and Graven, Bob Voss is here too. So we have two items. We are going to start out with our funding discussion for the Midco build out, and then we're going to at 5 o'clock. If we don't get through that, we're going to stop at 5. We're going to do the review thing, and if we have time, we'll finish up the broadband during our work session. If not, we will add it to our regular meeting because I think it's important. It's a time-sensitive issue that we have to finish up tonight. So with that, who's going to start?
Well, I can just give a brief little introduction.
Yeah.
So at the last City Council meeting, Midco was present to present a proposal to build out 466 homes, which is basically the remaining underserved homes in Minnetrista. And council directed staff to come back with a plan for funding for that. Brian and I spoke, and we proposed allocating $145,000 from the cable fund balance and $255,000 from the ARPA funds for a total contribution of $400,000, which is 15.5% of the project cost. They requested $450,000, but we thought we'd start a little lower and then kind of go from there. So that's the funding part. And then Bob and I had spoke, and I think it's important he provides you with an update on the memo he sent you as well. So,
okay, thank you.
Mayor, Council, Bob Voss, Kennedy and Graven, thanks for having me here. I'm going to try and be time efficient, Mayor. Here's my plan of attack. I'm going to make 35 seconds of introductory comments and then just summarize the memo that I provided. I provided an attorney-client privilege memo to you that raises a couple of legal issues. I'll summarize those for you, and then if you'd allow me, I guess I would offer up a couple of ideas about the contract that Mid-Continent has submitted to you.
Okay.
Those are ideas that would at least in part address some of the concerns that I've raised to you in the memo. And let you chew on those and maybe give feedback to Allie, to staff, and to me about those couple of specific suggestions. So, introductory comments. First, so I've been helping Mayor and Council. I've been helping you, I guess, for a long time, but more recently, in the last 18 months or so, we've been talking about Mediacom and Mediacom's franchise obligations and their compliance or non-compliance with some build-out commitments. And I'm reminding you that I'm aware of all that because I want you to know that I am quite well aware of how important to you and to your community this idea that not everyone in town has access to good high-speed internet services is. I totally recognize that that's an important issue, that you're hearing about that a lot from constituents and that people really want and need those services. So I don't want you to take my privilege memo as being throwing cold water on an idea that would get service built out to folks that don't otherwise have, or at least don't have the level of quality of service that you think they deserve. So I want to recognize that first. Secondly, and I just point this out, this is a point only maybe a lawyer could care about, but I didn't mention it in my memo to you, and so I want to mention it now, and that is that in the contract, in the proposal for Mid-Continent, they do include, and I applaud them for it, they do include an indemnification provision. And I think that could be tweaked. That's one of the areas that I guess I would suggest we might do a little tweaking.
Indemnifying who?
Right. So Mid-Continent, in their proposal, their contract language proposal to us, included some language saying, in the event, as a result of this deal that we're proposing to you, City, you run into a legal issue, you get sued, or someone raises a legal issue, we, Mid-Continent, will indemnify you, will protect you, defend you from those kinds of claims. Right? And so I've identified in the memo, and I'll remind you about them in a second, but I've identified some potential legal issues, and so in effect, Mid-Continent is saying we will defend you, we will protect you from those legal issues or any legal issues that arise out of the relationship that we're we're proposing. And then last, I would just say, because it's not mentioned in my memo, and I don't know that you've heard it from Mid-Continent in their presentation to you previously or from staff previously, and that is this issue of what role do cities, in particular cities in Minnesota, but frankly cities around the country, what role do cities, the local governments, play in development of broadband networks? We've been hearing for quite a while nationally, and I think in the state of Minnesota too, we've been hearing a lot about broadband, the need for broadband, the fact that broadband isn't everywhere we might want it to be, that is well established. But the role of cities in addressing and fixing that problem has been hotly contested. And I point that out to you because, of course, that's a topic addressed in my memo to you. I point it out to you, though, because it's actually led to litigation that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I didn't mention in the memo again, I'll mention it to you now. It's a case that was about, there is a federal law that says states can't interfere with any deployment of broadband. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing greatly, but basically a federal law that says states, you will not interfere with the deployment of broadband in the United States. An argument was made that states that have restricted or limited their cities within those states' ability to themselves deploy broadband and spend money on broadband, that those states are violating that federal law. Right? The federal law that says don't get involved in, don't interfere with deployment of broadband. That case, that dispute went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that states get to decide what their cities have authority to do, what cities in any given state have the power to do under state law. Okay. So despite the fact that Congress has said states don't mess with broadband, don't interfere with it, states can still restrict what cities in states can do with respect to broadband. So, I mean, that's an example, but there are lots of other examples. This has been a hot legislative issue in Minnesota in past sessions. There have been proposals made to either restrict further or expand city authority over broadband, and nothing has passed, quite candidly. So I don't want to point fingers or cast blame on anybody, but our state legislature has not done a lot with municipal authority over broadband.
So they don't allow it, but they don't disallow it, so it's basically neutral.
Yeah, and so Mayor and Council, so then let me just you're right, let me just then highlight the memo in a high-level way. The memo I've given to you sort of raises two concerns, let's call them, from your legal department folks. The first is just the practical concern, right? The concern that you have, although you are underserved, you have a good chunk of your city where folks are not getting the service that they demand, in particular the high-speed internet service they demand. Although that's true, you have two providers in your community, both of which provide high-speed internet.
Well, that's questionable.
I have no internet today.
I would say they provide internet. How is that?
Yes,
Okay.
and so when I say underserved, although there are choices, everyone has at least one option to get internet service, whether it's high speed, whether it's robust, whether it's reliable, I think is hotly, maybe not even disputed, maybe it's just acknowledged that those things are not there. But there is a theoretical ability to get some kind of internet service. And of course then Mediacom, Mediacom has had customer service issues and other issues that we here locally have had about build out, but their high-speed internet service does meet at least federal guidelines for what a high-speed broadband service looks like, and they serve a fair chunk, albeit not the part of your city that Mid-Continent is proposing to serve. They serve a fair chunk of your city. And so as a practical matter, those companies, in particular, I've pointed out Mediacom, but either of those companies might want to say, look, we're here, we provide a service. The idea that you, government, are going to subsidize a new company to come in and compete with us is a little offensive to us. Why not at least come to us and offer that same dollar amount or some other arrangement to us to improve, increase, expand, etc. You get the point. I don't think I need to belabor the point. You understand that as a practical matter, those companies might do that. And I point out Mediacom in particular because Mediacom, a very brief comment, Mediacom with respect to their cable, their video service, they have special rights as a cable provider under franchise to not face competition on different terms. None of that's relevant here because Mid-Continent is not proposing cable service, but Mediacom is quite used to making that argument because they do have special protections as a cable operator from what they would characterize as unfair competition or competition that's subsidized by the government or whatever. So as a practical matter, I want you to at least be cognizant of that concern that you have two providers here that may have concerns about a relationship between the city and Mid-Continent. And then legally, I'm happy to answer questions about it, but just at a very high level, Mayor, you've already said it. The Minnesota legislature has, in a couple of ways, created authority for cities to get into and spend money on telecom services. I've identified the couple of particular statutes that address that, but for reasons that I've addressed in the memo, neither of those statutory authorities appear to be applicable here. And basically the reason is because one deals with the power to specially assess residents, to raise money to pay for internet expansion. But that statute that gives cities that authority only applies where there is no current internet service available, and no reasonable prospect of internet service being introduced in the area that the city is trying to have it introduced in. So whether we can meet that threshold is not entirely clear to me at this point. And then the other statute deals with city authority to build its own network for us to actually be the owner of and the constructor of a network. And that's not the proposal that's in front of you, and so that authority doesn't appear to be relevant either. That leaves us with some more generalized statutory authority, theoretically, for the kind of arrangement that's being proposed to us. And I just raised that because we have very specific statutes that deal with this, and we have some general statutes that might apply, relying on the general when you have the specific can be problematic, right? There is a general principle that where there are specific laws, relying on general laws is of questionable validity. So that's the legal set of legal issues that I've raised. And then because I understand this is of very high priority to the City Council, and because you have a proposal in front of you that would, I think, largely address the problem, right? I mean, the Mid-Continent proposal seems to be quite well focused on the area of concern, and because they're proposing to indemnify you, I suspect that we may find a way forward, despite my concerns. And so I want to point out just a couple of provisions in the Mid-Continent proposed contract.
Bob, I don't think we saw the contract.
Oh,
It was in
okay.
your last packet.
What is? Okay. Not in this one, though.
It's not in this one.
Okay,
no.
that's right. So hold on just a second.
You bet. Absolutely.
Because there's a couple things. So one, you should know, because you were talking about Mediacom maybe questioning. So we offered Mediacom, was it 150 or 80,000?
It's like 89,000.
So we offered to cost share with Mediacom to add 29 homes. Okay, that's all. And so the cost share portion of that, I believe, is a far higher percentage of what we're offering Midco here. And they turned us down. So if they come back at us and say, hey, you're off base here, we can say, no, we're not, because you turned us down with the even higher offer percentage-wise of a contribution, and you said no, and that was only 29 homes. They're never going to come in and do 466 homes next year or this year. So that's one thing. The other thing is we also, you should know, we are using not levied local tax dollars. We're using the ARPA funds. And what we've done is we're looking at the total amount that we got, and we're saying, okay, so many people are on our public water infrastructure, and we're going to be adding a percentage of that to that project, essentially saving people money there. The other portion or another portion of that we are going to be putting into the areas that don't have city water, and we're going to try and provide broadband. So we're trying to give people that are in one area some benefits from this dollars, and then another area also benefits from these dollars. Yep. So I think that could also be used as a really good argument why we're using our ARPA dollars.
Yep. And Mayor, if I can just riff off of the point you made about the MediaCom point, because it's a great point you're making. In addition to the fact that you just laid out, which is that the city has already offered to sit down with MediaCom, and in fact have sat down. I was at that meeting and made just the proposal you're talking about, and I think we were open to other proposals from MediaCom. In addition to that, sort of undermining their ability to come back and complain now. I mean, let's not lose sight of the rather glaring fact that, at least in our view, they're obligated to be serving the area in question here, at least a big chunk of the area that's in question here, and they're just failing to do it. So, I mean, that's another, just as a practical matter, look, don't complain about us asking someone else to come here to do what you're obligated to do but won't. I mean, that's a little bit ironic. So, totally appreciate the point you're making on that. So,
and then did you have
I wanted to talk about the funds, because basically it sounded like you were saying the federal government isn't really backing us using city money to do this, but in reality that's where the ARPA funds came from, and they're designated for this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Mayor and Council Member, that's correct. There is no doubt that ARPA and arguably some of the predecessor federal funds in response to COVID have been not only made available for, but actually earmarked for broadband expansion. There's just no doubt about that. The concern was that Supreme Court case that I mentioned to you, which although Congress may have either said don't mess with broadband or here is money, states and local governments, here is money for broadband, despite that fact, the Supreme Court has said states get to dictate what cities can and can't do. It doesn't matter that Congress has given cities money earmarked for broadband and a bunch of other things. The way cities can spend that money is dictated by state law.
And here's another argument, though, is because these ARPA dollars have been out there for quite some time now, and it's always been designated or known that you can spend it on sewer and water infrastructure and broadband, and the state of Minnesota has yet to say, no, you can't. Mm-hmm. So I think we can. I'm sorry, but hey,
that argument cannot be challenged.
So if you cannot tell us in a year's time that we can't spend it on that, I'm sorry, but they've missed the boat then.
Yes,
so
fair point.
I mean, well, and how long are cities supposed to sit back and wait? Yeah. I mean, this is a hot issue right now.
Yep.
And a year, in my mind, is a long time to wait, and now we're just, I think, moving forward.
Yep.
And isn't this your page 4 that talks about the broadband goals for the state?
Council member, the page 4 of the memo is. I'm sorry. So that was actually included with this City of Hermantown broadband policy. They actually included that page, which is actually just a printout of a section of state law. So they included that in their own policy that they published, Hermantown, and I've just attached that. So. Right. I didn't neglect to include it, but it's state law. I mean that is the 4th page is state law. Minnesota state law.
Okay, so if state law wants us no later than 2022 to have this minimum speed that no one can provide, then can't we just go ahead with Midcare?
Mayor and council members, so the state has recognized that this statute. This page you're looking at very, very clearly says the state of Minnesota, the state legislature gets that there is a problem.
Okay.
Mission Control, we have a problem here, right?
Okay.
And we, the state, recognize that we have a problem. Nothing in this particular statute. I don't want to foreclose that there's some other statutory authority. I think we can find if we dig deep enough. This statute, though, doesn't say, and by the way, cities can fix the problem.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But it doesn't say they can't either.
Doesn't say they can't either.
Yeah, that's
absolutely right. To the mayor's point, right? The logic is absolutely correct, yes.
You don't say we can't.
So is your worry, your primary worry is that MediaCom will sue us? Is that your worry?
Yeah, Mayor and Council member, I don't know that I would say MediaCom in particular, but yeah, my primary concern is that someone would either raise vis-a-vis the state auditor or via litigation or in some other way an argument that the city doesn't have authority to spend money this way.
I'd say bring it on.
Yep, I hear
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry, but
Well, and if they be the only city approaching this, I mean, are they going to sue all the cities that decide to use the money for this?
Exactly.
I mean, that seems like a waste of my tax dollars.
Well, and to be clear, again, I'm helping you make your argument to me, I guess. But a third argument, the mayor's argument originally, my point that MediaCom is obligated to serve part of this area. Third point about MediaCom being the one to bring the claim, they have accepted money, right? I mean, they've accepted grant dollars from DEED, and they've accepted money from cities in support of their own efforts.
And they've accepted money on our behalf, because I believe the DEED grant dollars were on our behalf.
Yep.
So in essence, they've already accepted money, city money, if you will. I mean, because that's my understanding how the DEED grant dollars work for broadband. But
so the DEED grant program, which again doesn't expressly, to your point, Councilmember, doesn't expressly give cities authority to match the DEED grants, but DEED sees cities matching those grants all the time. I mean, that happens frequently, and no, it's not a secret. Right, and the state auditor is aware of it too. So that's occurring, no question.
And they haven't sued anybody. They haven't brought it up. The state auditors, they haven't done anything with that.
To my knowledge, the auditor has not questioned that. No. And I think the point that you're all making effectively here is that the state of Minnesota has acknowledged there's a problem, has established a grant program that's administered by DEED that everyone knows cities are helping to match. Cities are participating in financially, and no one, to my knowledge, has raised an argument, the concern that I'm raising, about where does that authority come from. So on the facts, you're absolutely right. The problem, of course, is that, let's be honest, and I'm not pointing out telecom providers in particular, this is true of maybe all of us in one way or another. It's one thing to say, well, they've accepted these funds, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to go somewhere else and complain when somebody else is getting the funds, not them, right? I mean, so that, and I see that quite frequently with the players here. So,
I think if you look at this, today it's broadband. 100 years ago or 80 years ago, it was electricity. And who invested in electricity? It wasn't just the electrical companies. It was the governments. I mean, and I'm sure I wasn't there at the time. Just want to make that clear. But I'm sure it was governments all the way, federal, all, county, state, and even some cities were participating. So I kind of look at it as that could be yet another example of where government has stepped in to help because it's been needed. So any more questions of Bob for sure? I mean, so let me ask you this.
Mayor?
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm going to something I got 7 minutes ago. I have just 3 very specific suggestions, questions to you about the contract. I realize you don't have it in front of you, but I think I can lay out the 3 issues fairly clearly, and then just sort of ask you if you want some added language considered on these 3 points. The first is what I've already said. There's a perfectly typical indemnification provision in this proposed contract. I would like to tighten it up a little bit to make it very clear that part of what they are offering to protect us against is just the concerns that I'm raising. It's drafted very broadly, and I think that must be what they mean, but I'd like to be very clear that they're offering to protect you against a claim that the city shouldn't be spending the money this way. Okay? Number one. Number two, the way I read the contract, and it's not apparently maybe what they said to you when they came to talk to you, or at least the way Allie has described it in her cover memo, and that is that as I read the contract, they are asking for the city's contribution, whether it's $450 or $400, whatever the number is, that to be the first money out.
That's not what he said at the meeting.
Right, and so I think there's a disconnect between the way the contract's written and what the company said to you, because the way it's drafted, it's irrelevant what the project actually ends up costing. The city's contribution is out the door first, and so I don't think that's what's intended.
No, he made it very clear.
Yep.
It was at the end. There was going to be a fixed amount whenever we agreed to if it's $400,000, but they were going to complete it, get it done, get it satisfactory for get people served, and then we were going to pay at the end.
And I think that's what they've done in the 2 other cities they have agreements with, is they front the money. But he made it very clear that that's not the case here.
Yes.
Well, and so we're actually 2 ships passing in the night. I don't mean the first money out the door in terms of timing of the payment, because you're right. Your absolute staff is right that the way this is drafted, they would construct the network. They would then come and ask for the reimbursement at the end after they've expended their money to build the network. They would come to you and ask for the money at the end. The point I'm making is that your money is going to be fixed at
Yes.
a fixed dollar amount regardless of what the actual cost of the network is.
Unless
And-
it's
They
less.
said if it was less, they were going to prorate it and drop
Right.
it. Yeah.
So that's the issue I'm raising, is
You
that
have to
I.
have
But it couldn't go higher with overruns or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yep.
So
yeah.
it-
So I think we want to cap the city's contribution, but I don't think that let's use crazy numbers to make the point. What if they've estimated 2.5 or whatever the number is? What if they somehow built it for $500,000?
Right.
Would the city really contribute 450 of the 5
Right.
in that scenario? I think that the answer should be no to that.
I think
right?
so in staff's report, it says 400, 15.5%. I don't know if we want to go 15% or whatever, but I think then we can tie it into the percentage with the cap being that 400 or whatever.
450,
Yeah.
he told us 450 was the highest it would be. That's why he came in and asked for that.
Yes.
But he
I just don't
indicated,
think the contract is drafted that way.
and he indicated maybe
Some
less
wiggle
would,
room.
maybe
Right.
they
I mean, he
could.
said, you're right. He
Yeah.
said maybe
So I
less.
don't know what 15% would be. Is that 390?
380-ish.
Okay. And I don't know if they want to go that low or.
I'm not sure. We can figure out those
Okay,
numbers.
all right. But I think
But if the cost is lower for them,
then,
They-
then
we'd
our,
share.
then our
our
percentage,
too.
that's why I'm saying we need to
Savings
tie it to a
Yeah, so
It should be
percentage,
proportionate
Yeah.
to the project cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the percentage.
Last point, Mayor, if I can, is that in this kind of arrangement, in particular in cable franchises, I guess is what I'm most familiar with, but in this kind of arrangement generally, it is quite common for the local government to have some sort of interest in the network that's being built. I will tell you in the cable context, cable franchises all say if you Mediacom cease operating the network here in our city, or if you go to sell the network in our city, we will have a right to purchase the network at the price you're asking for from some third party. We have a right of first refusal,
Okay.
right? And that would be relevant because having some interest, even that kind of an interest, makes the expenditure a little bit more justifiable, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, that would be a way to recognize the city's investment, right? Because if we exercise it, let's say in 10 years, Mid-Continent ceases to do business and isn't using the network here anymore. We could then acquire it either for nothing if they're literally out of business, or less the amount of investment we've already made in the network, time value of money forward, I presume. But
Yeah.
that would be a way to recognize the contribution toward the facility that we're making and give us a right to acquire it for commensurately less if we ever get to that point in the future.
I agree. Yeah.
And that goes a long way to addressing the attorney-client privileged issues that we've touched on here today. So.
Yeah, I think, so my understanding is then you'll work on this contract, and we will then bring this back at our next, our February 7th.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe you need to leave the dollar amount blank until we can talk. I'm not sure if we negotiate with Midco on that, or,
Or if you would like staff to negotiate with them and see, or I don't know how much wiggle room there is, if at all. It seemed like there was some, this
Right.
400. I don't know what the sweet spot is, but
I know have you worked with Midco before?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Do you have any idea?
Yeah. I mean,
But what?
I think
About like, so if they throw out a number, I mean, is that fast and firm, or because he said at the meeting, well, I'm just throwing this number out. Maybe it could be less. We entertain something less.
Yeah.
Well, let me answer it this way if I can, Mayor. So the person that I know in Mid-Continent is the general counsel for the company. That's the person that
Right.
I've dealt with on cable franchising matters, frankly. And I guess my short answer would be that they are they're a very straight shooting company. I mean, they I think are attempting to do what they say when they come in front of you. And so, for example, on the percentage issue, I think we probably just need to do some drafting on that. And on the issue of the dollar amount, if the commitment was to a percentage of construction costs, I suspect they're going to be willing to meet that as a cap, right?
Yeah, they didn't say percentage. They said dollar amount, and then they said that would be the max you would pay. But if the costs come in less, then I'm not sure how they would figure it unless there's a percentage in the contract.
It'd be best just to have a percentage in the contract. But he basically said if it wasn't the $2.5 million, if it was 2.3 or something, we'd
Right.
get some sort of
so it'd be
Credit or
15.5% of the total billed capped at 400,000, for example.
Yeah.
And are you guys okay with that number?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
450?
Before you
Or
leave.
400.
400. I'm sorry, Ann?
I said, before you leave, I need to ask him a different question.
Yeah.
The main reason I wanted you involved, though, is what does this set us up for when we go to negotiate with MediaCom this year? And granted, you verbalized most of what we would be facing, but is there something in particular that stands out to you that MediaCom could use against us in negotiating a new contract?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as I mentioned in the memo, given MediaCom's, at least in my view, failure to comply with their
Right.
franchise, they have not built out what they committed to build out when they got this last franchise. I think that fact can be used to our advantage in either refusing to renew their franchise or in going down the road of a non-compliance proceeding. Now, I'm sure that they're going to want to characterize, as I've said to you in writing, I'm sure they're going to want to characterize the city moving forward as Mid-Continent as a walking away from them type step. We're going to want to characterize it the opposite, I assume. We're going to characterize it as we've tried, we've bent over backwards to work with you, and it's just not working, and now here we are.
Right.
So who wins that? I mean, that's the fun of negotiating, I suppose, right? So,
But they wouldn't just walk away from what they currently have.
No.
They just may not expand. And here's the issue. They would, I mean, even if they continue to expand, it would be cable, phone, and internet. But most of the people, I haven't heard any people say we want cable. I've heard people say we want broadband. So for us, the issue is broadband. And I haven't heard anybody say they want landline or,
Not really.
cable phone. So, I mean, so my issue is, or from my perspective is, we need to look at how we can best provide that broadband. That's kind of.
and Mayor, to your point about that, I mean, I cover your ears if you're watching cable TV, but the fact of the matter is there are many, many choices now that are over-the-top choices for getting video service. So if you have a very robust internet service, you can find your way toward video programming for sure.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so you know what you need to change on the contract.
I do.
I think I'm hearing the council say 400,000 max, so that's
What's the percentage?
That
and
15.5.
which is 15.5%. So go to
Great.
it.
Yeah.
Do we
very
need to
good.
bring anything back with the contract? I mean, I saw there like a policy or
We have
is
the
there-
addresses as the exhibit and something else with the contract. There's a list of addresses and a map. You're talking about a policy?
Well, I just didn't know that was referenced.
And we'd
in
like a
that.
couple extra addresses.
And maybe
Well,
that's
just
more
as a
explanatory.
technical matter, I note that in the contract it refers to 2 gigabits up and 2 gigabits down, but apparently in their presentation they were talking about 5 gigs up and down. So
Yeah.
we'll have to, but those are, I assume, things that staff can just sort of technical
Yeah,
points that staff
yeah.
can push on and
Yeah.
we'll figure out. But yeah, and the addresses, I assume you want more than less.
I'm
More
thinking
addresses.
about okay. Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank
All right.
you, Mayor.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
you.
Appreciate it.
Nice to see you, Ron.
Yep, yeah.
Will you take the first cut and send it to me, or
Yeah.
just so we don't duplicate efforts?
Yes,
That'd be
sir, I
great.
can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next, and when Baker Tilly is supposed to be here.
They are.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I didn't see him
There's
come in.
coffee
so-
in there if you want some.
Oh, okay,
I'm
real
gonna
quick.
go grab some too.
5 minute break. 2 minutes? 2 minutes? Okay, 2 minutes. All right.
Yeah, I didn't get your water before. Want me to bring you coffee?
I'm good. I'm not a coffee drinker. Just water. Thank you. Yep.
Hello. He's a rapper. Okay.
Or I'll be up home.
Candidates and then what I
Okay, perfect.
created for you here.
Oh, that's
Nice. I tried.
Okay, those design skills are just
I'm telling you.
going through.
They're just grabbing some coffee quick.
Okay, are you sitting? Am I sitting there? Yeah, or do you want us over here?
Or that table is open right there, and then this one is actually open too. So
Yeah.
here, well, why don't I?
Patty kicks me. I'm
Why don't I sit over over there, and you guys can sit here. And share this table. Is that okay? Share that. Actually, I'll just go grab a different chair. Are you okay sitting that close?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got our mask.
Perfect.
We're fine. For a long time.
What's that?
I haven't seen Bob Vos for a long time. Hello. Now we'll see if my computer will behave and not be here. Yes. Take a deep breath in.
These ones are heavy.
Jane, if you're gonna bring yours up, then I'm gonna share up yours.
Let's see if it works.
If it doesn't, then we'll go.
What? Well, I didn't know
This is listed on there.
Yeah, because mine just is not large enough.
No, these are the numbers in the book.
This is how it looks when it.
So like when I made all my notes, I took their numbers.
This is how the vote.
Yeah, it is.
No,
In my
this is
opinion.
the numbers in the documents. So like when I was making my notes, I wrote the numbers next to them. Because it's not
Here we go.
number. And then we have a couple A and B, which just made it even more confusing. Oh, it's like 1 to here. So we'll see.
Okay, so we just took a little break. Welcome, and we have Patty and Sharon. Patty, what's your last name again?
Hemanover.
Okay, that's what it is. And at least I can pronounce clump, so that's not a problem. But so we're going to be referring to you as Patty and Sharon, and welcome with Baker and Tilly. And I think you know everybody here. Just we have name tags: Lisa, Pam, John, Ann, and Kathleen, and we have Dawn back there, Brian, and Allie. So and fairly informal. So for the councils, so what we're going to do is a brief intro. Then we're going to have a discussion on the candidates, and then we're going to talk about next steps and interview dates. And with that, I just want to, I talked to Allie earlier today. As you know, we have to refer to the candidates as candidate 1, 2, 3, 4 by number. And we also want to we don't want to say their name, and we also don't want to say where they currently are employed or past employment. And then I asked Allie if we mess up or maybe slip of the tongue, if we can redact that. So if we do, just know that before we put it out there on YouTube that it will be redacted.
Are we referring to 8 and 9 as A and B, or 8 and 9?
I think 8 and 9
Okay.
is
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Yeah, let's do 8 and 9 because I think it'll be easier versus you know.
A and B is there because we have numbers on all of the applicants.
Yep.
Right.
And we couldn't use the applicant numbers, so that's why we changed it, because we, try to keep the numbers correspondent.
But for
Right.
this discussion, is
For this discussion,
As long as we don't have to go back in.
yeah. For this discussion, candidate A is number 8 and candidate B is number 9. And I believe you have
Thank
these
you.
in front of you. So first of all, I just want to start out, I want to thank Patty and I want to thank you, Baker and Tilly, and your whole staff for all the work you put into this. It was a lot of information, and it was very good. And I was very excited and pleased with the number of applicants and also the quality of candidates for the semifinalist list. I also want to say thank you to staff and council, because I do know you guys spent a lot of time reviewing this. I did, and so I know you guys did too, so thank you for doing that. And with that, I'm going to give, who wants to, Patty or Sharon? Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to have about 4 minutes to do an intro, and then if we have questions, we can ask you some questions, and then the remainder of the majority of the time I want to spend on discussing who we would like to have brought in for the interviews.
Excellent. Well, Mayor, I think you did a good summary to begin with. We did have good candidates. Both Patty and I have had conversations with the candidates, so There is the information that you have. There may be some additional things that we can tell you. We also gave you the results of our internet scan because we know one of the first things council members want to do is see what do we find. And so we wanted to just put that out there and share that with you so everyone received that as well. I think maybe one comment that I would like to make before you get into discussion is just to call out that as we were doing the recruitment, we started getting a number of calls about the salary. And we extended it, the period for people to get things in. We'd had several questions from people. So we did that with the understanding that it would be council's decision on vetting candidates, who you liked, and where you want to be with that salary. We had I had 3. I don't know if you had any. 2. So she had some calls too. So that's a lot of calls. And I just want to point that out, that when we're talking about salary, you've got more candidates in because we just said, hey, it's under review.
And I think we'll discuss that too. And I would just like to point out to the council, maybe setting salary aside for now. We should discuss candidates and qualifications and that kind of thing. And then we will discuss candidates. It may, who knows? But I think we should think about that aspect of it. All right. Council, any questions of Patty or Sharon?
Okay. We did the evaluations on here? Did all of
I didn't do the evaluations, but you didn't have to.
If you had done them, it would have saved us a lot of time. Because then we would know how we all match up.
I'd be curious to see. Will we get to see that? Because that's a great question. I'd like to see.
I was under the impression that we didn't do those.
That's right.
So
the mayor is correct. And one of the things how many of you did them? Yeah, there were those.
I followed directions.
Few of the rule followers.
Where was that direction?
Here's what happens. We indicate in the transmittal that we would prefer that you not do the rating there. We've recognized over a number of searches that people tend to look at it differently. Some people will say, I am just rating the video. Others will say, I am thinking of the candidate. And then we all get together and sometimes those ratings change. So that's why we did not look at those. I mean, I went in this morning and I think 2 people had responded. So I kind of know who those people liked and where the ratings were coming in.
We might all have the same person. Now we don't even have to discuss it. We're done.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, besides the video, though, as Sharon was pointing out, I think there's other things too that we need to consider. So that's why I didn't do it. But
I'm not chastising you. Especially since she said we weren't supposed to do it. Before I voted.
I mean, I don't know if any of you did this, but one thing that I did, I kind of rated, not on a number scale, but a good, better, or best kind of thing, their cover letters. I know a lot of people don't do that, but to me, the cover letter is how accurate were they in terms of their grammar, their spelling, all of that, because the person that's going to be sitting there has to be very good at communications, not only orally but also written communication. And that told me something about the candidates. That's just one thing that I did on my own. And so I kind of rated their cover letters. Also, it also gives you a little bit of a view, an idea, how excited are they to come to Minnetrista. And some of them, man, they were super excited in their cover letter. So those are just some things to think about as we talk about this. Now, do you want to give us the numbers of the candidates right away and then talk about it?
What do they want us to do? Because you're the experts at this.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to discuss any questions you have. Sometimes councils like to go through and just see if there's any conversation or questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, just to kind of see. You don't have to spend a long time. I mean, but it's just to make sure, you know, where things are. Sometimes people do a straw ballot first to kind of see who's up there that, you know, and where there's agreement. This is really about agreement in
Right.
terms of a pool of people to bring in.
That's kind of what I was thinking, maybe a straw ballot. That's not to say that's the final by any means.
Well, that's technically what
Yeah.
we
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking, when I did my evaluation, I did, these are yeses, these are maybes,
Maybes.
and these are definite no's in my mind.
Yes.
And then comparing to what everybody else, I might have to go with a maybe. I'd be comfortable with that.
Yes.
But I would be a little bit more reluctant if it was definitely, in my mind, that was one of the weakest on it. So that's how and I love the videos, by the way. To me, that showed a lot of personality. And that, with this group of staff here, that is really important.
Yeah.
And the fit was very important in my mind.
You have
So-
some personalities.
Yes, yes.
So let's start with a straw poll, and I'm going to say too, I don't think we have to have only 3 or only 4 or only 5. I think if the whole council feels, hey, there's 5 or 6 really strong candidates and we want to see them, I want to make sure that all of you feel 100% comfortable with the people we're going to interview. So, since you did your homework, do you want to start? Do you want to start with? Yeah.
It's fine. And what do you want me to do?
Tell the
Tell me-
numbers of who you liked.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Who would you not eliminate? Put it that way.
Yeah.
By number.
Yeah, by number. That's right. Okay. Well, let's just. Okay. So, all right. So, my yeses. Okay. 4. See if I can find them. Okay. 4, 8, and 6. And then my maybes are okay, hold on. Hold everything. Do you actually have it? Do you have what we did? No. Okay, fine.
We aren't on your network right now. We would have to go into the network.
I'd have to go
and
through the
then
number.
try to-
Oh, it's right there for me. Never
Try to
mind.
find it.
I got right there. Okay. So my maybes are number 7 and there's 2 maybes. I know it. They're in there. That's nice. There's not. Okay. I had 2 maybes though.
And that's okay. We can come back.
Okay, fine. And then
Okay.
the rest are listed as no's, but so there's a maybe in there someplace.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to say, yeah, the maybe was number 2. The other maybe.
Okay. And who wants to go next?
Yeah. Kathleen?
Okay, I can go next. My yeses were 4, 7, 3, and 6. And my maybes were 2 and 9/B.
Okay.
What was the last one?
B.
9.
9B.
I was tracking.
All right. And John?
My yeses, I guess, if that's the way, would be in order that I ranked them actually.
Okay.
8, 5, 4, 1.
Okay.
And
any
if
maybes?
if I have to have, or I mean, if there were babies, it would be 6 and 7.
Okay. And Pam?
Okay, my yeses were 1, 4, and 8. My maybes were 3, and 6, and I think that was it.
Okay. I actually didn't have any well, I had one maybe. All right. I have 5 yeses. Number 1, number 3, number 4, number... Okay. All right. My yeses are number 1.
Yeah.
And these are people I want to interview. So, I mean, number 1,
Uh-huh.
number 3,
Got it.
number 4, number 6, number 8.
Okay.
My maybe was number 7,
Okay.
and everything else is a no. So let me look at this.
4 for sure.
4
So
is
4 we all want.
everybody wants 4.
4,
So
6, and 7 is maybe.
4, 6, 6, 6. 6 is a maybe for John, and 6 was a maybe for Pam. So 6 would be another candidate.
I have 4, 6, 7, 8,
4, 6.
and 1 comes in 5th.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about 7. The way I viewed experience, yes, lots of experience. I also looked at how an individual would fit with our current staff, what their personality is, and I didn't think that would be a good fit. I also felt like we need somebody that has a little more energy or displays a little more energy. So from an experience standpoint, great. No, all of them, I think, from an experience standpoint is okay. But that's why I put 7 as a maybe.
And just piggybacking on that, those were what I picked up as well.
Okay.
Those exactly the same personality that came across in the video, and then of considering all the candidates, the experience was probably, in my mind, just the weakest. But
Well, the comment that you brought up was one I had hoped you would bring up, because I assume you know a lot of the surrounding.
Well,
Hey, it's just, when I say surrounding, it could be the whole state of Minnesota. But basically, I assumed that you would have background on them. So, yeah, I can get in that path with you.
Kathleen, I know number 7 was in your yes category.
Yeah, I liked his experience with the fire district and that, and he knows the area, which I thought would be beneficial. So that's more why he was a yes than anything. I'm not gung ho on him. I just didn't necessarily want to weed him out right away. But
Yeah.
if no one else wants to interview him, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I just really liked his experience with the fire districts and everything. And when he talked about that, with how that's working with Orno, I thought that might be applicable. Oh, sorry.
Yep. Okay, so let's keep. Okay, now I had one in here that nobody else had. No, Kathleen, you had it. Number 3. He had 6 years experience. Can I say that? Okay. He has experience. His cover letter was the most enthusiastic. I mean, the cover letter from candidate number 3 was like, I'm excited, this would be great, fantastic kind of thing. I rated his cover letter as excellent, as good. His writing was really good. His presentation on the video was really good. The one drawback, of course, we know is can I say this, salary? Can I?
Just don't mention a name.
Okay.
Or you can say, yeah, you can say this.
Might be salary requirements. So the only thing I would,
Number 3.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Are you, number 3?
Yeah, his salary was high, and then the
The salary-
vehicle and cell phones had been, yeah.
Yeah, the salary was high. The only thing I would say, again, all those other factors might be a good consideration. And I don't know if there's any wiggle room in the salary. But here's the other thing. One of the other candidates, I believe it was number 8. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't number 8. Just hold on. It was number 6. And that person was also high on my list, and it was high on Ann's, and it was high on Kathleen's, and it was a maybe for Pam and a maybe for John. I believe
He needs
that
to relocate.
person, said negotiating or something like that. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember all of these 9. I thought somebody said they're...
No.
Okay.
No.
So he's okay with that. Okay.
Yes.
But there was another one that said something about being able to negotiate. So,
I think it was
Okay.
the next one down, 7.
okay. The only other thing that might be good, and I don't want to bring somebody in that we're not interested in at all, but if you bring somebody in that's like number 3, it gives you something to compare. It's another comparison. But I think I wouldn't bring him in unless the council is okay with considering the salary range that, because there would be no need, I don't think. Is that a fair statement?
It's a good question. And I don't know if you talked with him about salary at all, Patty.
He requested 150. Thereabouts.
Right. Well, it was 145 plus car and phone, which probably would come out to about 150.
Yeah.
And currently, I think we're talking up to 135 plus, I'm assuming, car and phones, since we did that.
I think that's
For Mike.
a pretty high salary.
And I'm just asking if the,
It was 145 with the car and phone, which that I did rank on salary, and I know we said forget it for the time being, but part of the reason some of these are graded down is I'd like to stick in our range if we can, because once we set because I think there's good enough candidates that fit our salary range. Once we jump out of that salary range, it's a domino. I mean, now there's next year, obviously there's an increase because of performance, we hope. But I'm just saying,
There
I
had to be, yeah.
I would like, from a fiduciary, I'd like to stick in our range if we can.
okay, keep in mind that, so the other, and that's a good point, I don't disagree. The only thing I'm looking at is whoever we get here. I want to make sure that we are paying them very well, so they don't just stick around for the 2 years, but they stick around for 10 years.
Right.
You know, that they're very, very happy here, and I don't want them to think, oh, my next step is going to be Maple Grove, or it's going to be Plymouth. Those are the cities that are paying in this range, in the 150 to 160 range.
Aren't we low compared to all the neighboring cities?
Yeah.
Like,
And I was going to bring up
Yeah.
a point. We
I
have
was
to be
surprised what Mike
careful
made.
how close they are to the next in line. I mean, to Brian and Paul. You need a big enough gap there
Right.
to the next ones down, too. And I don't think with our previous administrator it was sufficient enough.
Right.
So just keep that in mind, too.
But I kind of memorized when we were given the surrounding areas, and I remember
We were like
one in
7th out of 8.
particular
or
was
something.
it's within 10,000.
This thing.
Oh, thank you. You have it.
Yeah.
Oh, you have it. Oh, you have it.
The highest one,
Right.
the highest one in our area was
I agree with you. I
Wayzata,
don't want to go with that.
and they were like at 141, 142,
Yeah, that's
Right.
if I recall correctly.
Madam Mayor, I think Sharon wants to say something.
A couple of things. On candidate number 3, I think that the location is appealing to candidate number 3. We said that salary was under review. We made no promises
Right.
on where you might be, but it was rather to give you that opportunity to see and to consider. He might look at this and getting into the metro area, that could be attractive. So while I think he's responding, would he look at this as a good move? It's possible. The other thing I want to tell you, Corcoran just advertised today.
Yep.
Corcoran is up to 140.
Yep.
So
We might lose.
I think one of the things that's happening right now, the pandemic has created lots of different things that are happening
Right.
in compensation. And you can do as much compensation work and looking at what you can do for retention, but it's kind of wild out there right now.
And I know, and I've actually, when Mike, just before Mike left, and also I've talked with Ally about this, we're going to have to be doing a compensation study this year for next year. We won't make any adjustments this year, but we have to look at that because we have some fairly significant underpaid staff from the current market. And I'm talking really good staff that we don't want to see go elsewhere because we can't replace them in today's market. So we need to keep that in mind. And then I think that's where what Ally was saying comes into play when you have your top dog being, in that 135 range, and now you're hitting that ceiling with the departmental heads. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we need to have a big enough gap there. So I don't think it would be I understand what you're saying, John. I'd like to give us a little bit of wiggle room and maybe even consider in the 140, 141. That would put us right in the ballpark what currently Wayzata is paying. And if Corcoran, we're going to be competing against Corcoran because some of these are probably also going to be applying at Corcoran if they're not working with Baker Tilly. So, and that community is very similar to ours, very similar. It's a growing community. They have a lot of development. They have water. They're putting in a new water tower. Well, I mean, there's so many similarities that's going to be our competition. So we have to look at that.
There's just two other things there. I was looking at trying to keep in that 30-day window too.
Yeah.
I would like someone sooner versus later. So a couple of my ratings have been especially number 9, where he's committed till May, or he wants to be.
Right.
To me, that just blew that one out of the water.
Right.
So this
Exactly.
gentleman is 45 days, which, I mean, it's 2 weeks, but
Right.
it's 2 weeks. And the other issue I had, and I know on a video, when you're in a room by yourself talking to the computer, some are comfortable with it, some aren't. He did not make eye contact at all.
I noticed that
So, I
as
mean,
well,
that also
too.
could be the way he communicates. And to me, I'd like someone to look at me. When you're talking to me, talk to me. Don't be looking around.
And that's
It
something
could
you
also
might.
be the setup he has at home, though, because
Yeah.
my husband has 3 computers, and so pending what he's got, he's not always looking at the camera.
Right,
Like, I
but
mean-
he was looking kind of back and forth. If he was reading off to the side, which some were doing, you can tell. But I think he was really pretty knowledgeable about what he was going to say. It's just that he was never really looking at us.
I would say that would be something you can flesh out in the person
Okay.
interview,
Okay.
definitely. And if that's, and I agree, I think that's important. But that's something you would definitely then see in the
Sure. Okay.
one-on-one personal interviews.
So
Mayor?
go
Could I
ahead.
just add something? I had a nice conversation with this individual, number 3. This individual wants to come here. You can tell by his cover letter. And I probably had the longest conversation with him. Very enthusiastic. He did his homework
Yeah.
prior to applying and prior to my conversation with him too. This is where he wants to be. It's not a stepping stone. He wants to make this home for many years.
And that's why the other reason I think we should. I think he's a good candidate.
I'm not opposed to interviewing him. That's great. That was a maybe. However, we have a maybe and 2 no's. And he's a high salary. So that to consider.
Why was he your no?
1, too young.
And I thought of that.
You can't say that. You can't say that.
Not a good reason.
I'll say it differently. I'll say it too.
We don't want to go to age.
Too inexperienced. Thank you.
Don't offend us,
Experience.
Dan.
Experience.
Jeez Louise.
Okay, so that's one. And then
He was in college when I was.
We can't say that, guys.
And then you said you had a conversation, but he does look like he's doing a stepping stone just to get into the Twin Cities because he's already at a population of 4,600 and a budget of 25 million. I can't see why this would be enthusiastic for him at all.
Population's double.
I don't know what he's going to do here.
It's
I
growing.
mean, basically, all he's doing is going from very rural to less rural. That's all. Yeah, I wasn't gung ho at all.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm just dying to make an observation here.
Yeah.
One of the comments that I always enjoy from city councils is that they will meet the group of candidates. They'll have the first round interviews. And the comment that is my favorite is, this person is so different from their video. Now, it's a data point, but I have to tell you that when I talked with candidate 7, it was not an energizing video, okay? It wasn't.
Yeah.
But he answered the phone and he was there and we had a conversation. I don't know if he is a good candidate for you or not, but I just leave a little sense that you're kind of starting here with all this information and narrowing it down.
Right.
Allow yourself the opportunity to be surprised.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Let's take 3 and put it on the maybe list, okay?
Okay.
So far we have everybody agreeing to 4 and 6. 3 is, we're going to put them on the maybe list. We have number 8. Let's see. Ann had number 8. John had number 8. Pam had I had 8. Kathleen is the only one that didn't have 8. What was?
Which one? Hang on. Got to relate him back to his letter. He's got a ton of experience. He just doesn't seem to stay anywhere very long. I think he's just bouncing. I mean, he had the prior experience in government and that, but I wasn't a big fan. I wasn't a big fan of his video. I feel like this is his last stop and then he's done. So a couple years and then he's done. He doesn't want to work anymore. I just feel like we'd be the last stop for a couple years and then we'd be back here trying to find someone else. He's got the experience. He
has the experience.
Yeah. I mean, he has the town he's currently at. It's not even 2 years.
No, 6 years. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
2. And then the place before that was a year.
Yeah.
And then he had the elected positions, obviously,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's nothing. And then if you keep going back to the business management experience, it's all short. It's all 2 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. He doesn't stay long unless he's elected to stay long, and I didn't like that. I mean, Mike was here 12 years. And for that person's background, you would think there would be some period where he was there for an extended period of time, and I didn't like that. I want someone who's going to be here longer than I am.
And if you don't mind me making a comment on that one, it's a very big difference being an elected official and being a manager of staff. Those are 2 very different things. And most of his experience was in an elected position. So
Yeah.
So I would agree with Kathleen. I would take him off the list if we can put number 3 on the list. No.
she's negotiating.
Okay, I think that's a good point, though. So I think I would agree.
Well, actually, we haven't taken 3 off your list. Okay. For the record, if it's 4, 6, 7, 8, and you want to add 3 in there, throw 3 in there. I mean, basically, then we're done.
Number 8 had 4 yeses.
I have, if you guys want to interview 5, I have 3, 4, 6, 7, 8.
I would take 7 out. And there's one that
Okay,
we
let
haven't
me.
even talked about.
Yeah. What about
Yes.
one? What about number one? He was a one for. He was a yes for me, a yes for John, and a yes for Pam, and nothing on Ann and Kathleen. What about number one?
Okay, my comment was a good candidate with a strong city administrator background. I just preferred candidates who are currently in Minnetrista.
In the area, we'll say the area. There's some value to that.
Learning curve connections, Minnesota statutes. I was going through the whole list in my head because in trying to rule out and rule in, those were my criteria.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much I can say regarding candidate number 7. I have
Not 7.
No, I know. This is
okay.
going back to
Okay.
7. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm regressing here. And if we want to keep him on, that's fine. Maybe there'll be a different feel for it. But the reason I didn't put him on is because I know the situation with the city that he's in, and I know the issues that were pointed out. And I'm kind of questioning if maybe that's why he wants to leave, because it's a very difficult situation. I don't want to say anything else. I'm just saying that maybe.
Oh, that's a good point. We don't want just someone that's hopping, into the fire or out of the. What are they just trying to hop to get into a safe landing spot or something?
Well, it's a very it's a very
yeah. That was the analogy with you. Well, I mean, you want people coming here for the right reason versus just look. I mean, obviously.
And I don't want to second guess his reasons. I'm just saying I know the situation. I know what they're dealing with in his community, and the other community that they're dealing with. So it's difficult, and there's some very, very tough choices that they are going to have to make, and maybe it's like, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't know. That's just one of my takes, but
I did talk with him, and I think, as I recall, he was excited about the development. I mean, the development is limited in the community where this person is now. There is a difficult situation, but truth be told, many candidates have something happening that's
Sure.
kind of where it is. So I think the real question becomes if we're looking at doing 2 rounds of interviews, there was some discussion about doing a first round and doing a second round. Is there enough interest you want to bring that person in and talk with them? This is really that time when you're trying to figure out who should we bring in and talk to, not who you're going to hire. I mean, we want to use however many people you want to talk to. And Patty and I don't want to kind of say, hey, bring in this number of people just to bring in this number of people. But there is that element of becoming surprised by what somebody offers that you might not.
And that's a good point. Basically, if you want to bring in 6 people, bring in 6 people.
But I think your point too for number 1, good point. So I'm okay if we don't bring in number 1. That would leave us with 5. That would be 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. And if John and Pam really are strong about number 1, we'll do 6. John, Pam?
Can I make one comment about 7?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Our staff is also really not lacking in development. We have a really good, experienced staff member who knows his stuff on this. So just keep that in mind too. We don't need really supplemental knowledge on development.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask. Is 3 better than 6, better than 5? I mean, if you bring in too many people, is that almost just... I mean, isn't it... I guess I've seen in other cities, it seems like 3 or 4 seems to be, once you start to get above... For this type of position...
5 tends to be a good number.
5 is a good number because then it leaves you being able to come down to like 2 or 3. And we're keeping in touch with people. We're finding out whether or not they're looking at other jobs. Are they here for you? It takes two. It's the you know, kind of meeting in the middle of the road on this. So I think when someone says that they're interested in the development, it doesn't mean they will come in and they will sit down and they will start doing the development. Actually, this candidate, I think, knows. I think this candidate knows of your community development director and has a high regard.
I'm
for
sure
him.
they do. Yeah.
Has a high regard for him. So I think, you know, it's that the kinds of issues, what it means to be in a manager in a developing community versus one
Right.
that is not.
And I don't know if there's a you know, how do you say, a perfect number, whether it's 5 or 6. So I'm fine either 5 or 6. I don't think we should do more than that.
And did staff do any reading or looking? Or?
I did,
You did,
but I got the materials. Yes.
but you didn't do any reading.
Oh yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
What did you read?
My yeses were yes was number 4,
4. Go
6,
ahead. 4, 6,
and I like number 3
3.
as well.
Okay. Brian, did you do any or did?
A little bit.
All right, let's
My top 2 candidates are 3 and 6.
3 and 6.
And 4 is not bad either, but 3 and 6.
Okay.
And
So
then
I
we
think-
go back to, with number 7, 3 maybes, 1 yes, and you guys didn't even pick them. You know what I mean? That's,
The video was, I think, like you're saying, I think it didn't show him in the best light. He was my 4. He was my 4.
I was surprised when I talked with him. It's like, I didn't expect this guy to be lively.
But I mean, these 2 are the experts as well. And if they're saying the conversation was good and they're almost rooting for him, you know, you have to take that into.
3 and 6.
And nothing says, you know, like, okay, so he and I talked, and so we got this one-on-one conversation going, and I can talk pretty easily to most people.
Yeah.
Or,
You can.
You picked up on that.
Yes.
Now, that person may come in for an interview. I mean, that person may be good one-on-one. I don't know. I just wanted to plant the seed of, you know, maybe it was about one of the candidates. I think it was number 4. Wasn't feeling well.
That's right.
Yeah,
he said
but
that in
I
his
thought
thing.
he did the best
great.
video.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So I mean, you
So
just,
let me-
you don't know.
You
don't know.
I wasn't wish he would have raised his
If
camera.
there's enough
'cause you were looking
interest,
up at him.
it's good to talk with him. If there's not,
So here's my take. 3, 4, 6 for sure. Now, can I ask a question? Have we ruled out 8? Because
What?
8. Have we ruled?
8?
I'm asking
We have 4
about.
yeses.
Okay, so we're going to keep 8 in. He was the one that. Okay, that Kathleen pointed out. He hasn't been in any one place very long. I agree with that. That's kind of why I ruled out candidate number 5. I mean, talk about not being.
Plus, his video was very boring. Like, I had to like force myself to keep listening to it. I had 3 kids in the background. My husband was doing stuff, and I was like, "You can't hold my attention here." And I've got headphones on. This is not a good.
And again, he might make a great elected official.
Yeah.
He probably does.
Yeah.
But that's different, I think.
So if I were going to choose, let's just say between 8 and 1, I would put 1 in here versus 8 then, because of the experience and the longevity. Because number 1 has been there for 5 years at his current position, and prior to that was 20 years at a previous company. So I mean, talk about.
I liked 1 more than 8.
Okay, so can we change 8 to 1?
I had them real close.
I had them
I
very close
did it
as
with a
well.
numbering scheme, and I know
Okay.
it's somewhat subjective, but I made major categories, and then I numbered from 1 through 7 based on
Okay.
what I read, and they were both real close.
So if we go 3, 4, 6, 7, and 1, or we go 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7,
1, 3, 4.
will everybody be
Say it
happy?
again. Say it
So,
again.
1?
just who wants to interview 7? I mean, I 7. I mean, but do the other 4 of you want to do 7? I mean, because I
Okay, how many want to do 7?
I have a question first
Okay.
before do we find that they've all said, well, I have to give X number of days. I assume that's a given in the occupation.
Right.
Then the assumption is, for some of them, my assumption is, then I'm there on day 31. I know that's probably not realistic, but there are some of them, and 7 is one of them, who said I have to give X days, but then it's 30 days later that he said he'd be available. My take on that is he's local. He's not moving, so why does he want another month when I want someone here, and I assume staff wants someone here to take over responsibilities. So I had a problem there because he put down 60 days.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
He could have,
remember that.
I mean, there could be stuff planned that he's got going on, or, I mean,
He doesn't even have to move.
But when I left one of my jobs, I had a pre-planned vacation there, and I was like, yeah, I'll switch jobs. I have to give my notice, but I have a pre-planned vacation in this window, and so you're not getting me till after this date. So, I mean, there could be personal reasons why he gave 60.
I guess there are maybe a couple of things here. First of all, we can always work with the candidate to say, this is really when they're hoping to get somebody on. So we can get that out there and represent what you would like to see. The other thing is, you could get somebody that's got a 60-day. A 60-day, even 90 days are out there sometimes in some contexts. The real question is it better to take this candidate, even if you're going to take a little bit longer to get on with this individual, but it's who you want and it's good for a long term, or is the timing and the importance of getting somebody on there? That's not a decision Teddy and I can make for you, but it's just to kind of think about getting somebody on, but making sure that
We get the right
focused on
person. We get the right person versus, I mean, again, 2 weeks, even a month, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, isn't going to make a huge difference.
I'd say from a staff perspective, don't make that a deciding factor or whatever. We will make it another month.
I mean, it might give them a little lower score from that perspective,
but you want to get the right person.
All right, so again, are we 1, 2, 3, 4? Are we eliminating 8? Question. Pam?
We are not eliminating 8.
Okay.
That's what I would like to say.
John?
No.
Okay. Ann? We're keeping 8 in or out?
You have him as a yes.
Read the numbers that you want to bring in right now.
Right now, we have.
I know who it is and I know what we're doing, but the point is, I don't want to get into more than 6 people we're going to interview.
We've got 6 right now.
We have
Add
6
8,
right
we have
now.
6.
So
We have
what are
1,
who are the
3,
6?
1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
Those are the 6.
Right.
Okay.
Read the numbers one last time.
1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, that's 6. That would, now here I want to talk a little bit. That's fine. I think that's okay. Here's why. Sharon and I talked last week about how we're going to conduct the interviews. Sharon had an idea that I wasn't real keen on, but I'm going to share it with you. No, the conversation. Now, the conversation went very well. It went very well. So, and I'll say her original idea was, we would have 2 groups. We would have city council interviewing, and we would have staff in another room interviewing. Okay? I said, I'm not real keen on that because I want to hear firsthand and I want to see how staff interacts with the candidates. So it would be too big of a group to have 10 people. So I suggested, and she didn't like this, so I suggested that we have teams. We team up a council member with a staff, with a department head, and we have 5 teams interviewing. She had some concerns about that, which I agree with. She said we may have open meeting law concerns, or it may have a perception of trying to rule out the public being able to sit in. So I said, good point.
And I'll throw a third in.
So here's the third option,
Go ahead.
and this is the compromise that we came up with.
All right.
We decided to split into 2 teams, but co-mingled. So we'll have one team in here, 2 or 3 council members with two or three staff. We'll split it up, and then the other team, council members and staff, interviewing. So it'd be 2 groups, one in here, one in the conference room, interviewing. And I think that's actually probably.
How does staff feel about that? Because I'm going to tell you, in the corporate world, you have staff and you have managers, authority, and,
Right.
and they don't interact well, or they don't commingle well.
I'm just talking about the the 5 department heads.
Okay, they're right here. And basically, how do you two feel about that?
I think it's
And be honest.
the safest way to do it.
You think it's okay?
I'm fine with interviewing with council and staff.
We're all pretty comfortable, I feel like, with each other.
Okay,
It may
so-
not be like that in other cities, but I think here. it
So
works
you
well.
would speak out and you'd ask any questions you want to ask.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
never
met
have a
me?
problem. No, I think in honesty
Just
we'd
wanna
be
be
candid
sure.
and stuff. Yeah. So.
Can I piggyback on that? We did that method when we interviewed Ally.
You did.
And I loved it.
Okay.
It was really good,
Okay.
and we were in separate rooms. I got to hear questions that, Public Works, would ask, and I'm like, it was very good.
Okay.
And as the candidate, it's nice to see the interaction between elected officials and department heads, because that's what they're going to be coming into as
Okay,
well.
if you're amenable to it, then I am too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, fine, no problem.
Okay, so that was a compromise.
Well, and I think where we ended up on that too, I mean, just to be really clear, we're okay wherever you go. I think it's always important to be able to reflect your community. And
Right.
it did occur to me, I was always having problems with the 5 separate meetings. That just really gave me a lot of concern.
It just seems like
But
we're
when
redundancy.
you talked about breaking it down differently, and the other thing that the mayor said is that both meetings would be noticed. So, I mean, it wouldn't be like you've got any kind of noticing issues. It would just be noticed. So that's good. And I think from what I've been able to observe, there's a lot of back and forth and collaboration here between council and staff. So it demonstrates it really nicely. So this would be the first time that we've participated in interviews like that. But
And I think to Ann's
do.
point, if there was an issue with staff, I wouldn't have suggested that.
Okay.
But we work, I think all 5 of us work very well with our department heads.
Well, that's why I directly asked them, because
Right.
And keep in mind, there's probably going to be a final interview. Maybe at that point we could separate, and that's it.
okay.
I imagine, if that's what they wanted to do.
So then the next question or the next issue is when we do these interviews. So I think
Did
in
we
your
make I'm sorry to
Oh, okay,
interrupt,
go ahead.
Lisa. Did we make a decision on who? Because I think did we decide on 7?
So here what we said 6, and that's why I said 6 because we have 2 teams, so you'd be it would be an even number. I don't know that makes a difference.
How often I was going to ask, how often does a candidate, once they're going to become more of a, I mean, what are they at this stage? Are they finalists now once they accept or don't accept or the offer to come interview, or how does that work?
I think that they are finalists, but notice I said I think. Usually finalists are the people that have been selected by the council, and the idea is that they're going to be meeting with the council. These people are, but they're broken into 2. I mean, I'm thinking that your city attorney would say that they are finalists at this point.
All 6 are going to interview with both teams.
Right.
Okay,
right.
just
and
to
so
make that clear.
I think that they are finalists. And
Yeah.
what we would do, we would call everyone to let them know their status. Either way. So they understand what's happening. We would ask them too. Sometimes candidates they don't accept an invitation. Something might have changed from the time that they put in their application.
Right.
And so we just want to be clear with that. And even all through the process, even though it's not just a matter a week or two, we could see some change that takes place.
Well, that's what I guess I was partially getting at, is but we may extend an offer to 6, and we may only get 4 or 5
Right,
that ultimately.
right,
So it's probably
right.
not bad to extend
I think
it to
you're going
6
to
or
get
whatever. So
6.
I
think
believe
you're
they
going to
probably
get
will too.
6.
Yeah.
But you know, this is always something where there are surprises that happen when you're doing searches that you don't expect. So, yeah.
These
I'm
are
always ready.
expected to be in-person interviews, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but Pam was bringing up 7. Is 7 still in the game?
No, 7 is part of
number
the 6.
7 is part of this. Yeah, it's sort of almost
7
like a
is
who's
part
on
of the
first now. I think it's like, yeah. There's
6 finalists.
6 finalists.
6
7 is one of
finalists.
them, right?
7. Number 7 is one of them. Yeah, thank
Not
you.
Laurel, Harvey.
So 2 and 9 aren't going anywhere. The other thing is it's just 2 and 9 are out.
And
right?
5.
2, 9, and 5 are out. Yeah.
Yeah.
2, 9, and 5.
Right.
2, 5, and 9.
Yep.
All right. So, great. And everybody's happy, right? Okay, good. And then, so the day, and I did check with some of our staff, not all of our staff, but I know David wasn't going to be here today, so I asked him ahead of time, is this because the 7th was an option, so either the 7th or the 8th? And so the other thing is, about what, do you figure about half an hour per candidate for interview? For them to answer the question, and then I want to have some time for the teams to be able to talk in between, so it's fresh in our minds and we can.
45 minutes?
I think what you're doing is looking at 45 minutes for
Yeah.
interviews and then a 15-minute break.
Yeah.
So then we're talking 6 hours potentially, and
Way
then
there.
the two groups have to come together.
So it'd be 3 on the 9th, 3 hours on the 9th, 3 hours on the 10th, and then an hour on the 10th after.
On the 10th.
Are you thinking of afternoons?
February 10th.
So you're thinking of doing it in afternoons or evenings?
I'd say
When you say
afternoons.
9th and 10th?
Well, let me ask you something. Okay, so do you want to do 2 afternoons or 2?
Or just one long day.
Or
You
one
wanna
long-
do a 6. I'm telling you, after
Okay.
a lot of interviews, you get drained.
Yeah, you do.
And I think you start losing track.
Also, too,
Of-
you're going to have all these candidates come in and all know who they are? They're all going
Well, they
know
will
you.
find out to some extent. I mean, that's one of the things that happens when it's public. Their names will be, I will send something back to Ally.
They will be
after
public
we've
once
been
they're
able
up.
to-
Because these are open meetings, so as soon as it's an open meeting, their names are then now, they're going to be here
Yeah.
in person.
So
So
it'll.
Is that fair to that many people?
Is this too big? I mean, that's a lot of people.
Is that fair?
well,
Because they have to tell their employer.
Yeah,
you're saying.
their employer's
That's why I was
gonna
wondering
know.
if 3 or 4 is
But that's
better.
kind of the
This is-
risk you take. I mean,
well, do you want to
what do
do
you guys think?
5 versus 6?
4. That's a lot of people that have to tell their employer they're looking somewhere else.
Exactly.
There is a little bit of comfort in numbers that
Yeah, you
you've
get
been
fired.
contacted
Yeah.
and you're one of 5.
Go by.
Yeah, I have to wonder how fair this
Here's,
is to
well,
these people.
one thing that might happen, I don't know that it happens a lot, but what might happen is if they know that their administrator is looking elsewhere, they might sit them down and say, look, we want to keep you. What will it take to keep you?
Yeah.
That has happened, and that might happen.
And-
So
Okay.
I wouldn't say that if they're in good standing with their current.
So you're saying it may not be as harsh as the corporate world, but soon you find out somebody's
Right.
letting you go.
Right. And also keep in mind,
They're under contract.
there's a lot of opportunity out there right now.
That's
So
true, too.
I don't think
Point well taken.
I don't think that these cities are going to say, okay, well, we're going to let you go immediately because you're looking and we're going to get somebody else.
Okay, what is your opinion?
We work with this all the time.
Correct.
And so a lot of it, we're going to say to people, I tell people you do need to tell your mayor. Maybe not the entire council, but you want to be sure that you're telling someone and just giving them something like, I'm 1 in 5. I'm interested. I'd like to learn more. And a lot of people, when they're talking with us, say, hey, we like our job right now. We want to take a look at this one. So, I mean, you've got that kind of momentum going on.
That's why we were very upfront with our candidates, and that's why they like going with Baker Tilly, is because we're trying to communicate as much as we possibly can. They're not finalists until they say yes, they want to move forward. So they will have the opportunity to say, you know, I'm not comfortable with 6 going forward, and I'm going to back out. I don't think that's going to happen. But Mayor, you're absolutely right. What we have found, I just found this just recently. We had, it wasn't here, it was in the north part, that the individual that was going to be moving forward, very, very good. When this person told their council, they offered this individual a very attractive contract that there was no way she was going to pass it up.
Yeah.
So we've got those kinds of things that we're going to be wrestling with. But we're also going to share with them the, concerns with salary. We want to make sure that they are going to accept, the salary range, things like that that's concerning you. We want to be upfront with them. We want to tell them what our discussion was tonight, and making sure that they're comfortable moving forward. Because we don't want any surprises.
And I will also say, that's kind of the candidate's choice. I don't think, selfishly, I don't know if we have to be worried about that. We want the best candidate, and I think it's up to them. If they want to move on, they're going to have to tell their employer. That's with any job, Not to sound insensitive, but
Now, one point that's related to this, I did have one of the candidates question when we would do references. And there are times that we look at doing references before a second interview, because references is also a way that it kind of heightens things. And he kind of said that might work for him, but I did promise him that we would bring that up and make you aware of it. We may also get a question from one about whether or not you would take care of a hotel room or, any kind of assistance and coming up. That's not unusual. I don't think anybody else.
None of these candidates are that far. When I look at the time it takes to travel,
number one, I think, would be the
Yes,
furthest.
Number
right.
one is the furthest.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, it's a 2-foot snowstorm. Right?
Yeah, right, right.
And you can almost plan the snowstorm.
Yeah. So then again,
whatever.
so Ann, you were saying maybe you don't want to do 6?
No, I'm thinking that if somebody doesn't come through, if you want to do 6, do 6. My comment was that it isn't fair to people. But again, I am coming from the corporate world thing. It's not nice there.
Yeah.
And if they find out you're looking, they may offer you something and turn around and fire you in 2 days after. And I've seen it happen. I've never done it, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So basically, if this isn't the same way, fine.
Okay.
I think it's a valid point, though. Sometimes if you cast too big a net, it could scare a person or two off, but maybe that's, I don't know, probably thought.
Well, you can try 6.
I don't think we'll have a problem. I mean, what you can count on is that we'll let them know what to expect.
Okay.
And, some of the candidates, I think we've already talked about probably two rounds of interviews, so they know that. And they also know that we're looking at them to see if this feels like a fit as much as you are, too. So we want to have enough there that you don't start to get into, well, we'll interview 2 here, we don't like these, we'll go to the, and stretch it out.
Well, I think we'll go with the 6. And like Brian pointed out, I think that's a good point. Maybe one of them or whatever might say, no, I've got other things in the hopper that I'd rather pursue, whatever. I think like Patty said, probably won't be the case. But let's go with those 6. And we'll do the 2 teams, commingled. And we're going to look at, we're going to look at
February
the 9th
9th
and then 10th. Is that okay?
It's Wednesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
is that right?
And
What time are you looking at?
I was thinking afternoon, but I think staff is pretty available. So like a 1 to 4 type of deal, but I think we're available in the morning too. That's just what came
either,
about.
Well, I
whatever
think-
works for.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
I think it'd be better in the afternoon, only because I know it's better for you. I don't know about you though, Kathleen.
Wednesday afternoons are bad for me.
Okay. Or we could do a morning.
You can do morning, but-
And then an afternoon
Yeah.
as well.
Wednesday afternoons in general are bad. I've got kids' appointments and stuff.
That we can make that work.
Okay,
So
so
Wednesday
Wednesday
morning
morning,
and
the
Thursday
9th,
afternoon.
and Thursday afternoon.
And then,
Morning on the 9th afternoon.
yeah.
So the morning
At 9
from 9. Well,
Or
so
I think 9 to 1 is probably fine.
all right. So then, what you might want to do is the people that might have to travel a little bit further might come on the 10th and Thursday
Right,
afternoon.
correct.
You can give them the option, but and also maybe we could put them at the beginning of the talk or interview, so that if they would like to return that day, they could.
Yeah, we'll talk with people and
Yeah.
sort of see what we can do and work with schedule. And
Right.
Talk with Ally as we're doing this, so we're confident.
Yeah.
But I think having those 2 dates is also a good thing, because some candidates might be available Wednesday morning, but not Thursday afternoon. So,
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you don't want to do 6 interviews, 6-hour interviews in one day.
okay, good to know.
The afternoon, you're talking 1 o'clock to 4?
Well, if we wanted an hour after, half an hour.
Do 4 on one day, because you're going to go boom, 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 because you do them with 2s. If you do them with 3s, you've got...
Wait, what are we
Someone
talking
sit-
about?
Because you gotta have the groups.
I would do them so like you're going A, B, C, D, E, F.
Got it.
So
Then
I'd
I would
probably
prefer
try to do
2
4
on
one day and
Wednesday
2 the
morning
other.
and 4 on Thursday afternoon,
based on.
based on my schedule.
I see. Yeah, you'd almost do a 2-hour
do
block
2
one day and a 4-hour block the other day, right?
All right, so 2 on Wednesday morning, so it'd be 9 till 11. And then keep in mind, we'll want to at least briefly meet the 2 teams and discuss, okay, who do you think, are any of these, do you want to move forward kind of thing? Again,
I
fresh
think
in our minds.
That part of the
Noon or 1
meeting
on Thursday or something.
will take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Time after.
Where then we all get
I mean, I can
together
stay.
and we talk about, kind of like what we're doing right here. And it's not probably going to be a long or a short discussion.
What do you
Just
think, an
going
hour?
back and forth. I would say at least an hour.
You think that'll be 2 candidates, so it'll go probably a little quicker, but maybe plan an hour so that if it's shorter, we leave
Yep.
early.
Yep.
If it's longer,
And you will do the same thing. You will have some discussion about who is it that we want to spend our time talking about. Sometimes people find it's easier to say, who don't we want to talk about? Whichever way, you're getting down to the people that you really want to focus on and setting some of them aside.
so then on Thursday, if we start at 1 and we have 4 candidates and a discussion, it's going to be 1 to 6.
So you can do noon to 5 or something, or
Yeah.
1 to 6.
Noon to 5.
You want to do noon to 5? What do you want to? Noon to 5? Okay. Okay, and then
What was Wednesday morning then?
9 to noon?
9 to noon?
9 to noon, 2, 9, 10, 11, and then an hour for discussion, and then on the 10th, noon to 5. And then the other, so then we'll whittle it down, hopefully to 2, no more than 3, right? Possible second interviews. I would hope and like to do those the following week.
If we'll be trying to do some references, okay? So if
Okay.
we're doing the 9th and 10th and we know who it is on the 10th, we are probably going to have a hard time getting everything together for you that next week, just looking.
Well, okay, but question for you. Do we need those references for the second round of interviews?
It's nice to have, some places will talk about doing references after they've made an offer and make it contingent. The only thing we don't want, surprises aren't good
Right.
in a search. And so what we're trying to do is as much of the work up front so you don't get surprised.
No, I get that. Okay. I'm
So
looking.
you're saying the week of the 21st, that puts us at
What?
For-
Let's see.
Yeah.
for final interviews. Otherwise, we couldn't do it later the week of the 14th, 17th, maybe.
If you're out towards that Friday, yeah, if you go out towards that Friday, we might be able to do it.
Could do the 17th in the afternoon, maybe.
Okay, the 17th is not a good day.
Okay. I can't do the 16th. I have appointments all day.
Yeah.
I could do the
that's
18th.
So,
I can't. That's a long weekend. I could
President's
work.
Day
Yeah, it's
weekend.
President's Day
That's a long
weekend.
weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Well, then maybe
Which
we-
also, it may, you're never sure. It may make the 18th harder or earlier, but if you give us a date
I
right
wouldn't do
now-
the 18th.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think
Let's
so.
just go to the next week.
No, here's a
What
question.
do you think?
We're going to whittle it down to 3 candidates, okay? So on the 10th, 5 o'clock, you'll know who those 3 candidates are. You would have Friday, Monday the 14th, and Tuesday the 15th to do at least some of those references. I think by that time you'd... So could we do the 16th?
Allie just said she can't.
Oh, you can't do the
I'm gone all
16th.
day.
Okay.
I have appointments.
Okay.
Sorry.
Would the 15th be too early?
I think right now, that sounds really tight to me. Now, I mean, we can,
Can we move the first interviews up? Like, how did we pick the 9th and 10th? Like,
These are city officials. How bad do you think these references are going to be?
your points will take.
How, if you tell them too, we are going to be needing referrals. All of them should be preparing this prior to us meeting them on the
Yes,
first.
we have that
right.
before.
But
You already
do we
have those
need-
references. It's just you can't check them until...
I guess
do
to
we
Kathleen's
need 3
point,
weeks between today and the first round of interviews, or can we bump the first round of interviews up to the first week of February and give ourselves more time?
Well, even a better idea. I like that.
The second, third.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
okay, and I asked that. What was your answer to that? Why we couldn't do it sooner? I think I asked you that.
Again, we've got some other things that we're going to be pulling together for you, and we usually, we're cutting some of these times. We usually try to do 2 to 3 weeks to get everything pulled together, because we've got the questions, the references, we've got the leadership management style assessment piece that's in there, and just kind of touching all of the bases here. So we usually try to allow 2 weeks in there. So if we know today, and you look at 2 weeks out.
I mean, 2 weeks from today is the 31st, so that still gives us the first week
Oh,
of
the
February.
first,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'd be better overall. I
Yeah,
just
I-
not ruin that last week of February.
So are you? So Sharon,
When
is
we
this,
talked about the week of the 31st,
well,
did that work for you, Mayor? I'm trying to remember.
I'll make it work.
I mean, personally, that week works better for me than the following week in general. But
So if the council wants to, I'll make that work. We can either do then. Let's see, what's the first?
Tuesday.
that's a Tuesday.
Third.
The first is Tuesday. The second is Groundhog Day. All right. We can't do it Groundhog Day, can I? No. What works best for?
Staff is all here,
So that's your 2 weeks. Plus, okay, here's the other thing. We also want to make sure that these candidates have enough time to schedule this too. So that I think the 2 weeks is at least what we
Yeah.
want to do. So, okay. All right. Do you want to do it first and second, or do you want to do it second and third?
I'm open.
Any works
any
for
of them.
staff.
Or just the second, third, just flop. Just
Second
move,
and third?
Let's just move it a week
Move what we
up.
yeah, the 9 to 11, and then the noon to 5. Just move it to the second.
Is
third,
that
and then
okay
back to
with you
10.
guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So 9 to 12 on the
Or
second.
9.
Yep. And then 12 to 5 on the 3rd. And then final interviews.
I currently have a commitment that second in the morning, but
On the 2nd.
it's a volunteer event. I just have to get another leader. I'm the leader of it. So I'll just delegate somewhere.
Okay.
Well, could we do that in the afternoon? Do you have issues?
I have issues
You have
Wednesday
issues.
afternoon.
Okay.
I have
Never
an
mind.
issue with that too.
Okay.
All right. So, first round of interviews will be February 2nd from 9 a.m. to noon. Half of them, or whatever, 2 of them. And then the other 4 will be on the 3rd from noon to 5, approximately. Then, to do a second round of interviews, can we move those to the 9th?
That's what we had preview. Or the 10th. I don't know.
9th or 10th?
The 10th?
Does 10th work better?
For you?
Yeah. Okay. So the
And-
second round will be on the 10th, and we can do that in one time.
12 to 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as we're done by
We
5.
could maybe sneak it on that last agenda in February
Yeah.
at that point.
Okay,
Let's
and
see,
then Sharon, you had asked if we should do a tour of the city. I'd be happy to do that. I'm not sure what we need to do to arrange that, and that would be for those 3 candidates.
Yeah, so you'd do the tour in the morning, you'd probably do a tour in the morning, or you'd stagger it somehow too. And I don't know if you've got a staff member.
I'll be honest with you, I know the city far better than our staff. I used to do, we did city bus tours annually, and we did the city, so I would probably know a lot more than staff. I've lived here for 36 years, so I'm a little bit familiar with it.
Is there any type of posting we have to do for that, or since
Not
it's
for
just the
tour.
mayor?
No.
Yeah, I would say that's.
If that's okay with the council.
And you would do it separately with each candidate.
Do we have to? Why?
You know, you get a better perspective and you get that one-on-one with each candidate and they talk more.
Okay, and so do you want one other council member to participate and or some staff? We can't have more than one other council.
Right.
Otherwise, it has to be a meeting.
Well, you've also got to think about
Okay,
vehicle, and you get into whether or not
Right.
there are COVID protocols with
Right.
that and candidates. So
all right. I tell you what, I'm seeing a shaking of the head. No. Okay.
I'm questioning that too, just
Questioning.
because, no offense, Lisa.
No.
Lisa will have
We're saying it for
time
us.
with
You can
each
do it.
person that we wouldn't have.
What?
And if Lisa were to do the tour,
Uh-huh.
that's time that you would have that we wouldn't see.
Oh, point well taken.
And I think that's important.
So you could have, usually what you try to do is say, here's what the tour route is going to be. Here's what we want to show people. So everybody is getting basically the same tour.
Right.
You could take 2, 3 staff members. You'd have, a map, and they could go out and do the tour that way. Another thing that you can do.
I don't think Pam is saying that it's a bad thing.
No, I think-
if I do the tour.
Well, I
Oh,
kinda
are you-
am.
oh, okay.
She is.
That's literally what she
All right.
That you would get time
Where you wouldn't.
where
Okay.
we wouldn't. And
Yeah.
you may see something different that
Sure.
being with them that time.
Could we do some sort of social
So
hour
that's the other
with
thing that we've
coffee,
done in the
You
donuts?
past.
can do something
Yeah.
like that. You can do a tour where it's like self-guided. And there are some nice ways of saying, here's a route, and look at these kinds of things. And, this is where we've got the issue on a well. Or this is where, we have this development. Or this is where we have a lot of complaints because of X, Y, or Z. You can put out some things that you want people to go to, and there are even ways.
You know what? I don't even know that's. Let's just do this because of a February time frame and potential snow and ice and all of that. Let's not do the tour.
That's right.
Because what we can do is once a finalist and the candidate is, then that person we will give a tour to.
I like that
Okay,
idea.
so instead, what we'll do, and I've known this to be done, you host all 3 candidates at the same time, you host a little open house,
Yeah, oh, we
an
do that.
informal.
Yeah.
Even the public can come, and the council can informally meet and talk to the candidates. If you want to kind of do a little tour around
Even the city campus.
City campus prior to that open house, staff can lead that. Let's do it that way.
Is it possible to just a few, I'm thinking of how large the community is too.
The tricky part with Minnetrista is knowing where the border is,
Yes.
because we have St. Bonnie that's in the kind of completely surrounded, and not that they couldn't figure it out, but then we also have a kind of a C shape around Mound, and but we could put together something and say on your own if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. And if, again, you let people know and there's just something that says, hey, a few points of interest that you might want to take a look at. And we can say that later on there will be a tour. And I like your description of the border and why we have to be thoughtful about it.
Okay.
And you've done social hours like this before?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And they
Yeah.
work out well?
Yes.
Open to the public?
Yeah, it's like an open house.
Yeah. Usually you don't see a lot of public.
No.
But they would be open just because you'll all be there.
Right.
And that's a notice.
So Sharon, does that take place of the final interview, or is that after the final interview?
It's usually
is that the final interview?
Before the final
Before
interview.
the final interview. Okay.
So, I mean, if you're going to do something that afternoon, you would bring people in, and maybe it would even be it's box lunch or it's light hors d'oeuvres for lunch or something like that, so they know that there's going to be a little bit of a
Right.
social time and all of that. And
Okay.
So that takes me back to when you want to do that second round of interview with that little social hour. Do we want to do that on the 9th? Let's see, what do I have on the 9th?
I think
On
I
the
wrote down the 10th. I wrote
On
down
the
because
10th.
that works with
Okay.
The Thursday.
Kathleen's
Yep.
schedule, right?
Yeah, the 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we do like an 11 to noon.
Yeah, could you do 11 to noon and then do the interviews after that?
Well, how long are the final interviews going to take?
Usually you're going to want to spend at least 45 minutes. And you want to be able to get a sense of conversation. If it gets too rushed and you get questions up and you get answers back,
Yeah.
and they're going to get up and leave and you're just going to know that somebody answered your questions. I mean, that interaction and engagement takes a little bit more time to...
Right. So, if we do noon to 5, that still leaves time for the social hour before. Start the interviews at 1, plan an hour for each, and then we can talk basically from 3 to, or 4 to whenever
And
we need to be done.
As long as you set aside the time, we'll just kind of...
Make it
Yeah,
Massage the
we'll
details.
make it
or-
work.
Yeah. Well, I'll send out just meeting invites for your guys' calendar, just so you can have it on there too.
Yeah, so I think the 11 to 12, if we have some kind of a light lunch or I think we'll have to have a lunch.
Yep, I'll be sure to. Darcy orders that then.
Okay. Probably not pizza.
There goes the
Wait,
white shirt.
you're talking for which one?
The second.
I think for all of them, we do a little something.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's box lunches or.
So on the 10th, 11 o'clock till noon would be a social hour. And then you can decide if you do a tour of the facilities, then it might have to be 10 o'clock for the candidates to be here.
Okay.
So
That would not involve council, right?
No,
Okay.
no. So it'd be 10 o'clock for candidates, 11 o'clock for social hour from 11 to 12, informal meeting, and then 1, et cetera, on for the second round of interviews. So
Wait, what? Hang on, I missed something there. So
You're just saying
lunch
again.
is 11 to 12. Interviews start at 1. What's going on between 12 and 1?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
So
thank
start
you.
lunch at noon.
Yeah.
Okay.
11 to 12 is the social hour. Immediately following, we'll start the
12 to
interviews.
5,
Yeah,
okay.
right. Yeah, and we'll know more after the first round whether we're going to have 2
Yeah.
or 3.
Yeah.
If we only have 2, then we know how many hours we have to do for that second round.
In preparation for these interviews, on the 2nd and 3rd, is there preparation that we will be getting? Is there things like we got this time?
We will get you, we'll put all the information back together for you so that you always, kind of have it electronically. We'll be getting some interview questions to you, and I would expect that the best way to do that is for us to pull out some questions that we think might be some good questions, but you're going to contribute to those and add to those, and you're going to have follow-up questions because, we want to meet your needs. The other thing, leadership management style assessment, I know we have 4 of the questionnaires back in. One of the council members we're needing to hear from, and I'm not sure who it is.
Okay.
What were you asking?
We sent a link on doing a leadership management style assessment.
Because they said it was due the 31st, and then Allie said you wanted them done by today, so then I
Well, 'cause
I know I did mine.
Oh, well.
I think
I
I
don't
did.
know if I got that email.
Well, and I can go back. I actually think you might be the one, and I can go back and see.
I think
You would have known if you got the link.
I was going to ask you about that because I
It's like 190 questions.
Yeah, question.
A lot of questions.
I will double
And I
check.
remember
Yeah.
when I had till the end of the month.
When I saw that up in the printer, that it's going to take all day.
Yeah.
Are you okay
So you'll know if you
resending
did
that?
it.
Yeah.
Multiple choice through that one real quicker.
Because I think I know Kathleen and John and Lisa have done it, so I
Yeah,
can't.
no, I definitely did it because I remember the whole 194 and rolling my eyes to myself thinking, oh my God.
Okay. Yeah, we'll send you something.
And Ann's probably thinking they don't pay me enough.
It doesn't take as long as you think it does.
It doesn't
But
take
it's
as
check
long
the
as you
box.
think.
Check the box.
And first impression.
But we all had that same luck.
If I had to type an answer, I'd still be in.
All right. Okay, so we have the first round. That's done. We have the second round. That's done. You're going to come up with the questions. We can also think of questions. We can also do impromptu questions and follow up during the interviews. And that's the other reason I thought commingling staff and council, because that might generate some more ideas. What else? And then after those interviews, depending on who is selected for the final, I guess, then we can talk a little bit about salary too, because I think right now we don't even know. So.
Yeah, let's kind of see where it is, and I definitely respect that the salary ranges, and Allie and I worked on that and tried to get the information pulled together, but it's just one of those things, the times we're in, I guess.
Right. All right. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? All right. I know it's a lot of work. So vote for council and staff and for you guys. Yeah. So thank you very much. So what we're going to do is we have a few more minutes. Do we need to go back to broadband? I think we got that all done, right?
Yep.
I think I have all the direction I need. Unless
Okay.
I know 2 of you weren't here, so if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer. But
You mean just the more of that original contract that was
Yeah.
in the previous package?
Yeah.
But I think we got the parameters.
I think
right.
Bob, he knows what he's doing.
He
so
exactly,
he's one of
and he's going to go
most
over it with a
knowledgeable
fine-tooth
on
comb.
this, so.
comb. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Drive careful.
Drive safe.
All right, then we can be adjourned for another 25 minutes, 28 to be exact. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Ann.
Yep.
Okay. Ann made that. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. And then we probably want to hand these back to staff.
I'll take
Unless
them.
you.
Or
Do we
unless
keep them
you
for
could-
the interview?
Why don't you just keep them? Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I could send you fresh ones without the 4 or 3 that we aren't doing. Do you want me to send you just new ones? Sure.
I just want to make sure that they don't get in the wrong hands. so
Don't
that's
throw
it.
them in the trash here.
Got it.
Or your house, just shred them.
Okay.